Hello everyone, and this is my review for WWE NXT on December the 2nd, 2015. And, this week was, oddly enough, in terms of matches, not really a build to take over in any way, shape, or form. It was more or less just it was more storyline based around their promos after the matches, such as Nia Jax, and after Emma's match, they had some kind of backstage vignette basically setting up their matches. With Nia Jax, she had the promo with Bayley backstage, basically setting up Bayley and Nia Jax going into the NXT Takeover special in London. And they did it in a pretty interesting way. They basically had them interviews and they had them interview Bayley and saying it's like, well, if Nia Jax wants the match, she can ask for it and she would accept. And basically, you just had Nia Jax come up there and stare her down. And that was basically her way of, like, I want a title shot. And then attacks her after. Pretty much Bayley accepts it anyway in there. So not a bad segment overall there. I'm not too overly. I didn't find it all that good, but it was at least effective enough to what they needed to do. Same with Emma. After her match, she had a quick promo backstage from Asuka, basically her beating up on a punching bag, and then just saying it's like, "I'll see you in London." So nothing too crazy there. Throughout most of the night, I mean, you had Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson having a backstage promo talking about Enzo and Cass and where they're going to need to go and everything they're going to go with that aspect. And I liked where they went with that. Same with Apollo Crews having a backstage interview after Baron Corbin had a match as well. And this is one thing I really like about NXT is that even if the matches themselves don't pertain to the storyline in some way, shape, or form, they will do something to at least tie in both people. So you have maybe not a full-on face-to-face interaction, but you have something that coincides with what you just saw. And it's like, okay, Apollo Crews is feuding with Baron Corbin. Well, Baron Corbin has a match. They're not doing anything out there with each other. Why isn't Apollo Crews at least having some kind of backstage interview or something like that, talking about his upcoming match? And these are things that I actually like about NXT. Now we'll get into the second portion of the night, which was not only did they do it at the main event with that exact same thing I've been talking about, but they had a really good match with that to go along with it. But first, I had to go off and say how good the Chad Gable, Jason Jordan, and versus the Von Villains match was. I liked how they set it up. They were basically talking. They basically talked it up backstage to set it up really quick. It seemed like a gentleman's match and everything like that. And then it's like Gable and Jordan go out there and the Von Villains are out there. They have this great match. Gable and Jordan end up winning it. And it seemed like, okay, the good sportsmanship thing starts going again. And this is where the Von Villains look like they're going to make their turn a little bit. And probably go back to the heels that they were before they went away for a while and they came back pretty much as faces. Honestly, I would not be against them being playing heels here again, just to see a different change of pace from their characters at this point in time. I think it does suit them a little bit better to be a bit more of a heel team than a face team. That's how I've always actually thought. I've liked their work and I've liked their matches as faces, but I still feel like they would probably work out better as a heel team, where Gable and Jordan can work off as a face team. And hopefully we see some more from the two of them down the road. This is going to be a start of a storyline down the road here for those two teams. And this brings me to the main event of the night. You had them talking throughout the entire night about Samoa Joe and Finn Balor. Well, not the entire night, but they did have a segment back there backstage talking about Samoa Joe and Finn Balor and the match coming into NXT TakeOver, and also setting up the match, the following week with Finn Balor and Apollo Crews teaming up against Samoa Joe and Baron Corbin. And then, of course, Samoa Joe had his match with Tommaso Ciampa. Man, this was a really, really good match. Great match from beginning to end. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Just great back and forth between the two of them. I'm glad they gave them time to work with each other and make a good match out of this. It's just a great thing to see them go off and do. Down here, you know, the match itself pertains nothing to any storylines. It was just out there to be a good match. They got their storyline thing over in a backstage segment, and then they let them go out there and have a really good match. And that is one thing that I'm so glad I got to see, that I see here, especially in NXT, is that, you know, they don't always, you can't always have the matches pertain to the storylines. But if at least you're getting some kind of interaction, whether it's a coinciding backstage interview or something afterwards, at least they're keeping it consistent and they're making it to where it's like, hey, you see one guy who's feuding with another guy, you'll see the other guy within the show somewhere and somehow, and then they will be talking about that particular match that they want. So this week's NXT overall, obviously outside of the Gable, Jordan, and the Von Villains, and the Tommaso Ciampa and Samoa Joe matches, those were the really good matches. Everything else, match-wise, was basically irrelevant, but they set it up in such a way to allow for their storylines to continue anyway, that it still came off relatively good throughout the entire show. And at least, like I said, at least they had everything and made it consistent and coincide with all the matches that they're probably going for NXT TakeOver. And yeah, that is my review this week for WWE NXT. And I thank you guys for watching.